Today I want to talk about one of my favorite new techniques. It's one that works in really hot water. It's also one that works in really cold water, and that is the Nedmiki, or the Jig Head Minnow. Now this is no secret. This is a bait that has won literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in tournament fishing over the last couple of years. And a lot of guys think that this is a forward-facing only technique, and I'm gonna let you know that that is not true. And so today I want to talk about the 3 big things I've learned about this technique and how you can catch fish. So stay tuned, it's going to be a good one. This video is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. If you guys didn't hear the big announcement that I had, my sun shirts are now made in the US. It's a really big deal for me, and I'm really hoping to transition all of my products to being USA made. And right now the sun shirts are specifically 25% off. My hats are on sale, my gloves are on sale. Everything is discounted for the holidays. So one of the best ways to help support the Bass Fishing HQ channel is by shopping at Fin Fishing. And I'm gonna leave a link down below in the description. All right, the first big thing that I have learned about this technique, the Nedmiki, is that it is not strictly a forward-facing sonar technique. Now, does it help to be able to use something like a Mega Live and go out there and catch bass with this technique? Absolutely, 100%. You can target a lot of fish really specifically with this bait. Now, with that being said, this is one that I actually started to get a lot more comfortable with this year by actually not looking at my forward-facing sonar. And I'm gonna tell you a couple of different ways that I've learned to fish this that doesn't include using a forward-facing sonar like the Mega Live. Now, one of the first ways that I fish this is almost like you would a finesse swim bait. A lot of times when I'm fishing a finesse swim bait, I'm gonna make a really long bomb cast. I'm gonna let that bait hit on the bottom, and I'm gonna start slowly reeling it across the bottom, making contact with the bottom regularly. And that's the same way that I started to fish this exact technique. Now you may be sitting there saying, well, why don't I just throw a finesse swim bait? And this is the reason, is that this is a lot more subtle of a bait than even a finesse swim bait. A lot of the finesse swim baits out on the market, they all have some sort of boot tail on the back of them. And as you're dragging that thing and kind of reeling it slowly across the bottom, that boot tail is swinging back and forth, and it puts out a lot of vibration. Now, a lot of times bass like that, but when you are fishing highly pressured bodies of water, this is where I think picking up this little Jig Head Minnow instead of that finesse swim bait will get you some extra bites. Now again, I'm gonna work it the exact same way. I'm gonna cast this bait out, I'm gonna let it hit the bottom, and I'm slowly gonna reel that thing. And a lot of times I am gonna kind of jiggle my rod tip just ever so slightly, but again, I'm keeping contact with the bottom. It's a great way to clean up in an area. Maybe you get to an area, you catch them really good on a deep diving crankbait, maybe you catch them on a different technique, then pick up the Nedmiki, fire it out there, and slowly reel it across the bottom. Now the next way that you can fish this is actually for schooling fish. A lot of times in the summer, you will have fish that bust up on bait fish, and they can be even really hard to catch at times with baits like a topwater. A lot of times a topwater is the first thing that we think about, but instead of picking up a topwater, fire the little Jig Head Minnow out there and just reel it quickly below the surface of the water. It mimics what those bass are eating, those small bait fish, very well. And so because of that, you actually catch a lot of fish on it. So those are a few techniques that I like to use with the Nedmiki that don't require my forward-facing sonar. Now tip number 2 is actually something that the forward-facing sonar Mega Live has taught me, and that is actually the way that you work this bait. Kind of the way that I was taught, the way that I was shown, the way that you see a lot on YouTube is to cast this bait out, let it fall down, and then slowly reel it while kind of just popping your rod. Now what I found is that you can too aggressively pop your rod, and you will see fish come up to that bait and then go away from that bait. And it is very frustrating as an angler. So what do I do when that is happening is I very subtly pop the bait. Especially like today, I'm fishing really pretty cold water. The water's somewhere between 50 and 52 from what I'm seeing. And I'm just casting this bait out and just slowly with my rod tip just barely bouncing this bait. And that has made a big difference at getting no bites and starting to pick up and starting to catch a few fish. So that's something that if you are, if you're using this with forward-facing sonar, just pay attention to that. If you see a lot of fish coming up to it and then going away from it, slow down the way, that pace that you're jiggling that water. Really slow it down, and it's gonna make it look a lot more natural in the water, and you're gonna start to pick up some fish. Now, the third tip is actually one that I learned from Joey Nania when I had him on the Bass Juice podcast, and he told me about when you work this bait to really try to make it go evenly through the water, if not a little bit upwards. And something that I have found out is that us as bass fishermen, we always talk about catching fish on the fall. When you let a bait fall, that's when they hit it. And you will catch some fish with this bait at times, but the thing about this bait, something that I've learned after catching a lot of fish on it, is that those fish really do like this bait, just like Joey said, kind of going flat or almost up, if anything. If a fish kind of rises up on the bait, sometimes I will speed it up just slightly and keep that bait almost going upwards. And a lot of times that's what triggers these fish. It's not letting that bait fall that triggers. It's actually that bait kind of going away. Actually, you're tricking that fish. It's that whole cat and mouse game to like go up and inspect it, and then it seems to be going away from them. It seems to trigger a lot of fish. And that's something that, although I learned it from Joey Nania, it took me a minute to really understand the fish and how they relate to this bait. So no matter if you're fishing it in really cold water or really warm water, just pay attention to how that bait is coming through the water. Now, if you really want to learn this bait in full, I'm going to leave a link for the podcast that we did with Joey right here. We talk a lot about this, the setup that we use, everything, and he goes into really great detail about it. Thanks for watching, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.